So I'm in play rehearsals and I have a seizure. Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Pain Check. Today's guest is Ella, a 21-year-old university student at McMaster who's been navigating life with central nervous system vasculitis. Symptomatic since age 8 and diagnosed at 16 during the height of COVID, Ella brings a powerful voice to youth disability advocacy. From MRIs and seizures to steroids and biopsies, Ella has lived through a medical journey all while studying, working, and building a university life. So, hi, Ella. Welcome back and nice to see you again. I'm excited to have you on the podcast. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your education, your background, what you've been up to recently.
Yeah, hi Natasha and hi everybody. So my name is Ella. I use she, her pronouns. And as Natasha said, I'm 21 years old. I'm a master. I won't go too much into that, but I'm studying integrated business and humanities. I'm currently going into my final year of a 5-year program. For the last around, I would say 15 months now, I have been doing an internship at IGM Financial doing community engagement marketing in downtown Toronto. In my free time, I'm involved with a ton of extracurriculars at McMaster. So I do some like ambassador work for the DeGroote School of Business. I am a mentor for younger first year students. I'm also involved with the DeGroote Pride Association, acting as their president for the 2025 to 2026 school year. Um, so I would consider myself pretty involved. And then also, most importantly, I do some work with the Vasculitis Foundation of Canada. I do some of their social media work and other advocacy work.
Thank you so much for sharing. You're definitely a very busy person, but I want to talk to you about your vasculitis. I mean, you're on this podcast to talk about your rheumatic disease and what you've done so far and how you've kind of overcome the challenges. So you were symptomatic at 8, but didn't get diagnosed until 16. How is that like? Can you walk me through that timeline of like just like having these symptoms and then not getting a diagnosis till a really long time?
Oh, girl, tell me about it. So it's actually kind of a crazy story. So I was probably in the third grade and I like to play sports at recess with my friends and stuff like that. Yeah, I was an active kid, so I don't know. I was kind of tall for my age at that time. I wasn't super tall, but I don't know. I guess that just meant I got kicked in the head with soccer balls a lot. So, um, then I started getting a lot of headaches, and I'm not sure if you remember with the elementary school curriculum, there's this thing called EQAO in the third grade and then the sixth grade. So in the third grade, we were writing our EQAO tests, and I was like, I have a pretty bad headache. So I went to my teacher, and she's like, girl, you're fine. Like, just get through it. And I was like, okay. Um, don't really remember what happened next because I was, in fact, 8 years old. But that eventually led to me being hospitalized for a good while. Um, so they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I got spinal taps, I've gotten CAT scans, so many MRIs, just like trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with me. They thought it was lupus, they thought it was just so many other things. Could have been Lyme disease, just a plethora of diagnoses they went through, and they were like, okay, well, it's none of them. And then eventually I lost sight in one of my eyes, and I could only see in black and white, actually. And then it magically cured itself. So one of my eyes is like kind of permanently scarred. So I do wear glasses when I like work and stuff. But it's only a prescription in one of them. It's kind of silly. Anyway, um, but I kind of magically cured myself. Or as I know now, I went into remission. But all the doctors were like, wow, this is like a miracle. You know, she's our little golden child. Like nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew what I got diagnosed with. So I was like, awesome, chill. Let me just live my life. And then I turned 16. I'm in high school. I'm partying with my friends. I was having a sleepover with my friends at my house after like the morning of a party or something. And then we Uber Eats some McDonald's for the morning of. And we were eating, and then my tongue starts like twitching. I'm like, this is weird. Like I literally can't swallow my food. Um, and I was like, okay, chill. So I tell my mom, obviously, and she's like, okay, see if it gets better and then we'll go to the doctors. And I was like, okay. Um, so I go to the school the next day. Everything's fine and dandy, but it still kind of keeps happening when I'm trying to eat my lunch. I'm like taking videos and sending it to my mom, and she's like, okay, like this isn't normal. Like, let's go to the doctors. And I'm like, Mom, I have school play rehearsals after school. I can't miss those because I was, one of the leads for the play at the time. And she's like, okay, after you're done the play, um, then we can go. So I'm in play rehearsals and I have a seizure. I've never had a seizure before in my life. So that was so scary. And of course, having it in front of all of my closest friends at the time, which was crazy. Like, and it was pretty embarrassing for me at the time too. Um, so then I was hospitalized and everything. They still couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They were like, oh, you just have epilepsy. And I was like, is the trigger for epilepsy me eating? Like, I'm very confused here. So eventually I kind of stayed home and everything. So I was actually, um, you know, at home when talks about COVID were really starting. Um, and then I ended up having a stroke, in my mom's bed because I was too scared to sleep on my own. So I had to sleep with my parents every night, at the ripe age of 16 years old. Um, yeah, so then I had a kind of like a half a body stroke. I was still awake, I was still present, but it's like, okay, we're taking you back to the hospital. So then I was hospitalized for a little bit of a longer period of time, and that's when, all the schools closed down. It's like, okay, we're gonna stop schools for 2 weeks. I was in the hospital at the time, so I missed out on all that fun and, well, I wouldn't call it fun, but just, all that craziness, excitement. Um, and yeah, they're like, okay, let's get you in for a biopsy. Let's cut your brain open and see what's in there. I was like, okay, I guess so. Obviously, I was so drugged up, I couldn't really, I could obviously say no, but I was like, okay, let's get this over with. Like, I was just so numb and just like needed to figure out what was wrong with me. And they're like, okay, you have this thing called CNS or Central Nervous System Vasculitis. I'm like, okay, what the hell is that? So, um, that's how I'm here today. And I don't know anybody with CNS vasculitis, actually. Um, yeah, I've only met a handful of people with vasculitis, but yeah, that's kind of my story. It was a long journey to get here. Again, being, in the hospital world, in the pediatric world, transitioning to the adult world as a now 21, turning 22-year-old. So yeah, it's been a very, very long journey to get here.
It really sounds like it has been, and you've been through so much and just like those symptoms and stuff, but I'm glad that at the end of the day you did get a diagnosis. Can
Yes.
you tell me a little bit about, you know, what was it like going through those multiple MRIs and even that brain biopsy during COVID?
Ooh, okay. So again, like we all know COVID was a very different time. So I won't go too much into like COVID was this and COVID was that because we all know what COVID is at this point. But my individual experience, like because I was, in the hospital when lockdown happened, like I had like 20 friends at a time coming to visit me in the hospital. It was a party you know, in my little hospital bed every day. But then I was like, okay, hey, we can't allow any other visitors other than family. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I just text all my friends, be like, hey, there's this thing called COVID. Like, I guess we can't hang out or anything. So that was one thing. But then when it came to appointments and everything, um, it was a little bit more difficult. So I had to go for a ton of MRIs at the height of COVID. So I would go for like one every month at that point. Um, so once I got home from the hospital, I would literally like, and this might be like kind of TMI, but I would literally have to like strip down my underwear, like leave all my clothes in the garage so my parents could like take them up, like they would be like mask on and everything because nobody really knew like what COVID was, and just like really knew the dangers of it. And especially in the media, everybody was like, if you get COVID, you're gonna die. Like at that point in time, the media surrounding COVID was very, very different, especially for somebody who is newly diagnosed as immunocompromised, with zero vaccinations for COVID at that time. So then I go immediately have a shower, like all my clothes would go straight to the wash. It was just very, very crazy. And then also when it came to going to the appointments in the hospital, um, because I was kind of transitioning to adult care at the time, like again, I was 16, might have been 17 at that point. Um, but just, requesting to have my parents there. And they're like, okay, well, are your parents necessary? I'm like, yeah, they are actually. And then also when I was in university, so in my first year of university in 2021, it was still very COVID heavy. Pretty much majority of my classes were online. And going to McMaster University, living on campus, and then also going to school at McMaster University, meaning my place of pediatric care, which was McMaster Children's Hospital, was extremely close to me. So sometimes I'd like bring one of my friends and they wouldn't let them in. I'd be like, okay, well, you know, this is a very tough time for me. Like, I would like somebody there. And it was just kind of one of those things because you were bringing a buddy that wasn't a parent or guardian and they didn't want to overcrowd the place. But it was also the um, conundrum of like, okay, well, I need to protect my peace and I need to make sure that I'm feeling comfortable. So that's kind of what it was like for me during the height of COVID, with just appointments, MRIs, everything surrounding that, especially because I was diagnosed literally when COVID started. So, yeah.
Wow, I mean, it definitely was a pretty rough time for you. And I think not only are you just kind of dealing with the health issues, I feel like also the isolation and then not knowing anyone with that disease. So it's like the isolation was already there for people that were, experiencing COVID or just like anyone in society. And then you had this elevated point of feeling alone because it's like not only am I just like I can't see anyone because I'm sick, but now I don't even know who else has this condition. So
Oh my gosh, yeah. And like, especially being like so drugged up, because once you get out of the hospital, like they put you on as much medication as possible. Like, they really make sure you're okay. So just being so emotional from all the drugs and medication, it was, oh, so rough. But anyway.
would you say your vasculitis is better now, like symptom wise and everything? And how has that been managed?
Yes, yes. No, my vasculitis is great. It's just, the thing that really is a lot for me to manage at some point is the things associated with the vasculitis. So the post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and those aren't super, like, they're obviously very correlated, but it's because of the things that you go through when you have vasculitis. It's not necessarily a direct correlation, um, like medically, but anyway, vasculitis is good. Everything's healthy. Meds are working. So that stuff is good.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad. So during that time when you were diagnosed and you were in the hospital, how did your family react to that and how did they support you during that time?
Yeah, no, honestly, like I have the best family ever. Love them so much. Definitely my mom was my biggest supporter and she would stay overnight with me every single night in the hospital. There was never a time where I was left alone. And I love that because although I am super independent now and I love doing things alone, at that time I was a child. Like I couldn't, being in a hospital alone was so scary. So genuinely, my mom like lived with me at the hospital. Um, so that was really great. We didn't do any of the transition houses or anything like that. It was literally in the hospital room. So shout out to my mom for that. Um, my parents and my sister and myself are extremely type A people. We're all kind of, business people, organizers, everything like that. So my mom has kept every single medical record printed, handwritten, whatever it was, records of every single appointment ever since I first had my diagnosis when I was 8. So she has been keeping track and I don't want to say she knows more than the doctors, but when it comes to my personal health, like she knows more than I do sometimes because she's like, okay, let's bring this record up when you were 9. I'm like, how do you remember that? But it's because she keeps track of everything, which is very, very impressive. So obviously for my family, it was hard. My sister, she's 2 years younger than I am, so she was 14 at the time, and obviously that's still pretty young too. But because I almost want to say this wasn't our first rodeo, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So everybody stays strong for me and it was all good. Friends and family sent me flowers and I had lots of visitors. And at the end of the day, like all the scary stuff was over and it brings me a lot of comfort being in the hospital because I'm surrounded by so many impressive professionals who can be at my side if something were to happen. So it always made me feel better being in the hospital and being taken care of than being at home without a diagnosis, non-medicated, and like something scary, like a seizure just happening. I'm like, okay, take me to the hospital now, please. So, yeah.
It definitely gives you more reassurance being in that health
Yes.
setting. Yeah, for sure. I can totally see that. What do you wish doctors or practitioners had done differently during those early years of like you getting diagnosed?
Okay. I thought about this one for a while, but I think I have a pretty good answer. Um, So to preface, I work a lot in communications in my current job. And something, because I work in the financial industry, something that I'm faced with a lot is information overload. And how can I present information to different audiences? Um, so when I was younger, and obviously like the pediatric doctors, like they were amazing at being able to present information in a way to children. Um, but I think just being very, very cognizant that everybody absorbs information differently. You don't need to present all the facts all the time. As doctors, I'm sure you're always wanting to, here are the facts, here's everything that's going on inside your body. Sometimes I don't want to know that because it gives me anxiety. Um, so I think really talking to your patients and being sure like they are ready to handle all of that information. Um, sometimes people are like babies and you truly need to spoon feed them things. That's just kind of like some things that I've learned just in my professional life. Um, but I think just being very careful with the information you present. Because yeah, sometimes I didn't want to know all the stuff that I did, but there's other moments where I'm like, tell me everything. So I think it's just being very, very open and honest with your patient at the time and just, you know, being very careful how you present that information to them.
I think also like meeting them where they're at and like what they want to know, if that makes sense. Because yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Sometimes we want to be involved and sometimes we don't. So it's like finding a good balance of like what makes us comfortable as patients.
yes, absolutely.
So I think there's a lot that comes with a diagnosis. It's not just the medication and like the hospital stuff, but then it comes to a point where, you have the medication management, the confidence as well, like you being confident, and then also your relationship with, people around you, yourself, your body. So, can you tell me a little bit about the impact that vasculitis and the medications were having on how you viewed your body?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I was on a steroid called prednisone for a very long time, and that's a very common steroid for people living with vasculitis to be on. It's a common one. It makes you very, very puffy, lots of acne, weight gain. You get super hungry on it. So not things that you necessarily want to experience as a 16-year-old with a pre-existing eating disorder. So, um, trigger warning for all the listeners, eating disorder, disordered eating, that's what I'm going to be talking about next. But um, so yeah, I've always had problems with body issues and body image, disordered eating, binging, fasting, just all of it. Um, so to be subjected to intense weight gain that is so fast, so quick, it's just not healthy for a 16-year-old girl to face. And now I'm 21 and still experiencing that. Like I have stretch marks all over my body from that time. And I'd love to call them like my battle scars or something like that. I will never view them that way because, I have disordered eating and body issues, and that's something that I am actively working through. Um, but I will forever say this, like prednisone is the worst drug in the world. Like it saved my life, but it also has killed me in so many other ways, right? And that's something that I'm totally comfortable being open and honest about. Not everything about healing is sunshine and rainbows. Every healing story, it's never, a happy ending. There's still things that you are still actively working through, and body issues is one of them. So honestly, if anybody's out there listening who is, experiencing prednisone and they're like hating the side effects, me too. I was there. I'm no longer on prednisone, so that is awesome. but still, like, just honestly living with like the scars and everything from that time in my life, it's really rough. And it's almost like a constant reminder that I went through that. And there is kind of like some, you know, guilt around that, saying like, why me and all that fun stuff. So therapy has really helped me through that. I encourage everybody who's on prednisone, has a rheumatic disease, vasculitis, anything, go see a therapist. They'll change your life. A good one will change your life. But yeah, so it's not easy. It's not all sunshines and rainbows, but it happened. I'm living through it. I'm working through it. And that's what's important to me. You're not alone.
Yeah, prednisone's a big one. I was on it when I was 13 when I was initially diagnosed, and same thing, like the moon face and like wanting to eat like everything out there. And I mean, when this episode will be released, it's going to be far away, but I am currently on prednisone now
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And it's always like the hesitancy of like getting on prednisone because you're like, yes, I want the inflammation and the pain to like decrease and I want to feel better, but like do I want to be like trying to eat everything and then having like body issues? I'm so hungry, but like should I not eat because that's gonna
I
like
know, like the restricting yourself, and that's where it gets very unhealthy, especially if you don't have a good relationship with food to begin with, which was like me. So yeah, just see a therapist, honestly. Like I can't give advice about that, because that's something I'm actively working through. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a practitioner, like none of the above. Go see a therapist.
yeah, I think it's definitely a tricky drug to work with and like people don't talk about the other aspect. We're just like, yeah, there will be like weight gain and you will want to eat more, but like what does that actually mean for
Exactly.
someone? Like no one talks about that. And it's rough because you're like, do I want to eat? Do I like that's literally what's going in my mind like half the time,
Yeah.
which I'm happy my rheumatologist is giving me like a lower dose, but I'm like I'm still hungry. I guess we kind of talked about sort of like the mental health effects of being on these steroids in a way because it does kind of mess with your mind a lot and you can feel insecure and you can lose confidence. So, do you have anything else you want to add in relation to those like mental health effects of being on steroids?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can talk about what I call the big three: anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Um, so yeah, I've always kind of like experienced anxiety and depression when I was growing up, but PTSD was a very new one after my diagnosis, and that really came from having a biopsy, and just seizures and everything. So now I have like a crazy PTSD thing where like I cannot be blacked out in any like circumstance, whether that's like drinking, it could be like being putting under for like another procedure. Like that is just not my thing. So it's kind of just become like a bodily reaction and stuff. And sometimes like I'll encounter random things like during the day to day, and it's like it'll remind me of that time, right? So like sometimes if I'm like lying down on like a dentist chair and there's like a bright light like flashing in my face, like that reminds me when I was like being put under anesthesia to get my brain cut open, right? Like it just brings you back to specific times. Um, I am on a pretty high dose of antidepressant medication right now, and that's been super helpful for me. Um, it's made me a lot happier with my current life situation. Quality of life, that's the one. My quality of life right now is great, but at the time it wasn't. Um, yeah, so I think just being very aware of the intersectionality of how having a rheumatic disease affects your mental health is genuinely half of the battle. Um, if I had no mental health effects after I was diagnosed and everything, I'd be like, Psh, having a rheumatic disease is chill, like whatever, like I'm fine now, like not a big deal. But because I had to deal with all of those mental health struggles and still do, that is that's the thing that keeps popping up, right? It's not the disease itself, it's all the things that come after it. So again, like for any practitioners or doctors who may be listening, nurses, mental health is genuinely everything. And I know, like, in the media, we're starting to talk about it a lot more. And especially Gen Z are starting to be incredibly open and honest about it on social media. Keep pushing for that with your patients because that is the thing that carries with them most of the time. You have your disease and, you know, that's it. But, you also need to focus on the mental health of having a rheumatic disease.
Yeah, we always talk about the symptoms and like the physical stuff, but never the emotional, like, the social aspect of this diagnosis, which it takes up a pretty big chunk of like what this diagnosis is. It's not just like the pain, it's everything else that comes with it that we just don't talk that much about. Did you ever
Mhm.
feel disconnected from your body? And if so, how have you tried to like rebuild that connection?
Yeah, I think newly diagnosed me felt pretty like again like in denial about it. I feel like I'm very connected to my body now, but I think at the time what really helped me was honestly like grounding myself and doing things that made me feel good in relation to my body. So I love doing my makeup, I love doing my hair, like I just love like things surrounding beauty. So making myself feel good really helped me stay in control of myself. Because at the end of the day, like what I've kind of heard from other rheumatic disease patients is like, you know, the thing that they yearn for is control, and they want to be in control of their health, control of, the situations, control of their diagnosis. They want to be in control of everything. So let's do something that we can control, for me was, makeup and beauty and, you know, outfits and fashion and making myself feel good on the outside. So if I could kind of, mold myself into the way that I wanted to be, well, obviously being super connected to, my mental health and, my previous body image issues, which I've discussed before, and making myself feel good and confident really helped me bring that connection back to myself.
Thank you for sharing that. How do you define confidence now post-diagnosis?
Yeah. Honestly, confidence is a weird one just because like you have that like textbook definition. Confidence is all about you, and it doesn't matter, like you could be the most confident person but not be happy. So, present yourself to the world however you want. We're living with a rheumatic disease, like that's up to you. Nobody can control that. But if deep down inside you are not feeling that happiness and that joy when you're walking around and interacting with other people and looking at yourself in the mirror, then it really doesn't matter. Like, don't focus on how other people perceive you. Look about how you perceive yourself. Are you confident in yourself? And then you can start focusing on, are other people confident in you? Are you confident in other people? Um, yeah, so really start focusing on that within the piece.
You were also growing up during this time, so you went to, high school and then university. So what was the transition to university like for you, especially living right next to a hospital?
Yeah, I know that was crazy actually. So how my master works is you live on residence your first year, and then um you get to like be in off-campus housing with like student houses and everything like that. So living on campus was very interesting. Like I loved it. However, I was so close to the hospital. And at that point, my disease was only like a few years old. I got diagnosed when I was 16, went to university when I was 17. So that was a big transition. Like I've had times where I have cried in the university parking lot. Um, like to the hospital because I'm like, okay, like, this is my life, whatever, just like little moments of self-realization. Doesn't happen anymore, but that was a really, really big one, was just the close proximity to that location. It made it so much easier to go to appointments, which was great. Um, but I think it was just that I need to see this every single day when I'm walking to class. Hmm. So now I've become super numb to it, and it's almost like, this building is a part of campus, right? And I have like that special connection to it. But now I'm old and I have connections to all the buildings on campus for different reasons. So it's, you know, growing on that campus has definitely taught me a lot of things about myself, but also, it doesn't have to be a negative connection now, right? So it's not, this is where I got my diagnosis and I've had so many MRIs here. Now this is, oh, McMaster Hospital has a great cafeteria and they have a great grilled cheese there that I can get with my friends after we're done studying. So it's really just kind of like flipping that narrative a little bit. And yeah, that's really helped me.
How did your condition affect your ability to build a social life in university?
Um, Honestly, I'm gonna be so real, it kind of didn't. Um, so I've always been a very social butterfly. Like that's just my personality. I love interacting with new people. Um, But in terms of my diagnosis, there's moments where I'm like, okay, like I need to step back and like have some me time. But as somebody who gets intense FOMO, that has never been easy for me to say no to a social outing. Um, so I think like having my friends know about my diagnosis is important, because then they can support me. Like in my student house right now, I live with some of my best friends. And they have like my emergency like what to do if Ella has a seizure like little piece of paper like stuck to our fridge. Um so honestly like even just like joking about it, creating like friendship bonding moments with the people around you. I also met somebody in my first year who was living on kind of the same floor as me. And she also had a chronic illness. And so we really bonded about that as well. And just like we're able to joke about it and just talk about coping strategies. But honestly, my disease has never held me back socially. And I'm so thankful for that. And there's been moments where I've had to push myself. Um, but do I regret pushing myself sometimes? No. And there's going to be people who listening where it's like, okay, like I'm super in tune with my body. And when my body's telling me this, like I want to sit back and, like relax and not do anything socially. I'm the opposite. I'll just, I won't say I ignore it. Like I never push my body to the point of like, exhaustion or anything. Um, but for me, it's never been something that held me back because I didn't want to seem weak. And, you aren't weak if you are, choosing to stay back and take care of yourself. That is actually a intense sign of strength. That's stronger than I could ever do. Um, but yeah, like I think it's almost a very unique situation for me to kind of keep pushing through that instead of trying to take breaks as much as possible. Um, so I mean, you really kind of have to listen to yourself and again, like what makes you happy and being with my friends and being social makes me happy. I knew I would regret it if I like, stayed in. So I think coming up with that compromise as well if I'm not feeling so well, like, that day, I won't kind of cancel all my plans. I'll, see how I feel and go out in the evening, right? So it's just kind of like, taking things by vibes and just waiting. Don't cancel, don't commit to anything yet. Just, you can always be a TBD, and that's fine.
Thank you for sharing those strategies. I feel like it's hard for people to definitely like decide which things they want to do with their friends, or like you feel like the fear of missing out or all those things when it comes to like living with a chronic illness. But I'm glad it didn't impact you that much, or you were still able to kind of do things that you like doing. So did you ever feel like people understood what you were going through personally, like your friends or anything like that? I know you mentioned that, they're very supportive, but did you feel like, oh, they actually like understand?
Mm, love my friends, but no. Um, I can't remember who. It wasn't one of my friends, and it wasn't anybody who I was close with, but I do remember somebody saying to me, like, oh, like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you went to McMaster, like, hospital for this chronic illness that, like, consumed your life. I went to Mac Children's Hospital for, like, breaking a bone once. And I was like, Queen, that's not the same thing. Like, so there's been moments where people really try and relate to you, and it's like, awesome. Like, that's so cool for trying. Um, but at that point, it becomes offensive. So there is ways that you can you know, empathize with people, but also, sympathy is okay sometimes too. I know empathy is kind of like the number one. It's like, I've been there, I'm doing this. but sometimes you don't need to empathize, especially if you have a situation that's kind of like not really it at all, or it's like, oh, my family member has this. Like sometimes people, especially me, don't really care about that or don't want to hear that. And that might just be me. But sometimes I'm like, I don't care about your grandpa's second uncle. Like, I care about you and I care about me and the discussion we're having right now. So sometimes being like, oh, that's really tough. Like, you know, you're so strong for going that. Like, is there any way I can support you? Um, so yeah, like my friends will obviously never have the full picture of understanding, because they weren't there when I was diagnosed, and just, saw the symptoms leading up to it. So, um, but they're really trying and they're great people. And again, like they never become friends with people who won't push you, but also won't hold you back. So, again, being a TBD in plans is always so important to me. And even just feeling like I'm invited to things, and not just being like, oh, well, she has this chronic illness. She might be tired that day. So maybe I just won't invite her. No, you can still invite me, but I might just say no. So, yeah, just making sure you build those kinds of friendships where people don't exclude you from things.
I know. That's the whole thing about like, people taking that extra step to invite you, not just assuming that you can't make it because maybe you can. And like we mentioned, chronic illness is not something that's like the same every single day. It changes every
Mhm.
day. And so it could be that one day we can't do something, but the next day we can. So you're
Exactly.
like definitely trying to still give those invites and then we can decide from there just based off of how we're feeling. So I wanted to ask you, what supports have helped you cope emotionally throughout your diagnosis journey or even to this day?
Yeah. Honestly, like therapy has been a great one. My doctors are amazing, but my therapist, like again, like they're able to bring that mental health piece into that. So that's great. My friends, my partner, my family, they have been amazing supports as well. It's so important to have good people in your life when you're going through something like this. Because if you have a toxic, body and toxic people around you, your life's going to be toxic. But if you have a toxic body and, maybe some really, really good friends, then it might not be as bad. Um, Vasculitis Foundation Canada, little plug there. That's been a great resource. It was really helpful for my parents when I was first getting diagnosed. So shout out them. Their website has great resources. So that was very helpful. Different Facebook groups that my parents were a part of for people with vasculitis. Again, like CNS vasculitis is a very, very rare one, especially for people my age. Um, so I've never met anybody with my disease, but I've met other people who have vasculitis, which is really cool. Um, but yeah, those are kind of like the main ones.
You now volunteer with Vasculitis Foundation Canada, which you've kind of mentioned a little bit. What motivated you to get involved? I know it is your vasculitis, but like, more in depth, I feel like we can have this diagnosis, but what kind of like wanted you to like continue volunteering to this day?
Yeah, yeah, no. So I figured I was trying to look for resources for myself and I came across their website and I'm like, "Oh, this is great, great resources and everything." And I was trying to find an Instagram for them and they just didn't have an Instagram. I'm like, "Okay, guys, it's the 21st century. Let's get you an Instagram." So I reached out to John and Lucy from the Vasculitis Foundation in Canada, and I said, "Hey, like I have some great expertise with social media marketing, graphic design, all of that stuff. If you guys are looking for help, like I'm willing to help out." And they went, "Of course," just because Vasculitis Foundation is kind of a smaller organization because it is a more rare disease. It is part of like the Rare Disease Network. So they could use the help. So now I run their Instagram, follow Vasculitis Foundation Canada on Instagram. Um, yeah. So just making those posts and just informing people of various age groups. They have a Facebook as well, but I don't have Facebook personally. So just something where younger generations can be a little bit more connected to their Instagram and, be able to find those resources at their fingertips. That was really important for me.
I know, and thanks for everything that you're doing, like just for the community. It's so empowering and the posts are amazing. So definitely we're gonna put their Instagram below in the captions so people can check it out. Why is youth advocacy in medical spaces so important to you?
Ugh, I think just from being in the hospital scene so young, I've had experiences where people love to like try and force me to do things. So like, again, living with PTSD and just anxiety and being like so type A who like wants to know exactly what's going on like for each test. They're like, "Okay, you need to do this." I'm like, "Okay, but why?" And either they can't give me a proper answer or they're like, "Just do it." And I'm like, "Okay, no, like let's, take a step back here." Um, so teaching youth how to say no and ask clarifying questions is so important to me. Nobody can force you to do anything, even your parents. My parents were super, super helpful in making sure that I was able to make an informed decision in every step of the process. Like my biopsy was my decision. They could have just not do it and like guessed that I had vasculitis and put me on these medication, but they would never know 100%. So, you know, making sure you are able to make informed decisions about your health, and your well-being to protect yourself, protect your peace, protect your body. At the end of the day, every decision involves you. It is not involved your parents. It is not up to your doctors. It's up to you if you want to do that. So, informed consent is so crucial for any medical practice ever. And nobody can coerce you or manipulate you into saying yes to a certain thing, even if there's like a specific test that you are trying to do. Like I was doing a breathing test, and one of them was making me feel really anxious because you had to like kind of like breathe in when there's like no CO2 physically in the tube. So it was like it feels like you're choking. Not doing that. Like that's just going to make me feel so sick and so anxious and ruin the rest of my day. So they skipped the test after me having to say, no, 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 like I don't want to do it. So you can modify things to help yourself and help your peace, help your anxiety, whatever. They can work around you. That is how this works. It is about you. You are the patient. They're collecting data and tests and everything on you. So you can make those decisions on how you are being impacted with your health journey.
Yeah, that's so true. And, it's definitely something that patients may not always think about. Like, as in you think is like the doctor's responsibility and like everything is the doctor, but really it's like it is you, like you mentioned, and the patient has to take charge. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones living with the condition, not the doctor. So.
Exactly.
So you were a part of our patient panel for our recent event, Unity Through Rheumatic Diseases. Can you talk about your experience and what it was like sharing your vulnerable side on stage with 150 people?
Yes. No, it was such a great event. I had so much fun with my fellow panelists. We all kind of became friends after that, so that was really nice. I've never met like a ton of people my age with any rheumatic disease, actually. So that was really fun just to build that network, and just meet a ton of people at the conference who are in the same shoes as me, slightly different sizes or colors of shoes, but still shoes, which was really cool. Um, I've always loved public speaking, so really that kind of wasn't an anxiety thing for me. It was just how can I amplify my voice for these, you know, children, parents, practitioners, doctors, all of the above, and how can I share my story in the most impactful way possible? So I think I was pretty successful doing that, and I think it was really nice because me and the other panelists were able to kind of amplify off of each other and each tell different perspectives, which was really cool. Um, so ultimately, I had a lot of fun doing it. Wasn't a ton of speaking anxiety around it. Obviously, being vulnerable with myself, that's been, that was a source of anxiety. But I think I've just done it so much with doctors and friends. Like I've had to share my story probably millions of times. So I've kind of just become numb to it, and now I'm using it to my advantage to talk to other people about it who are less scared to share their story and, you know, maybe a little bit more anxious with telling things to their doctors and all that fun stuff. So I'm just like, psh, this, and this, like, all of the scary stuff that people don't usually want to talk about. I have no shame in talking about it anymore because, like, it's my life. Like, it's in the past. Like, whatever.
Yeah. No, and thank you so much. You were such a great speaker and super engaging as well. And I'm glad that also I heard like a lot of the vasculitis patients, like I never met other young patients with like other young patients like them before. And so it was like also a way for them to connect. So I was like, wow, this is like really nice just like seeing other young people connect.
Yes. Yes, it was great.
So what do you hope that other people learn from your story?
Wow. Okay. Um, Something that I hope people learn is sometimes things take time. As you can see, like from 8 years old to 16 years old, like going undiagnosed, like that's a long period of time. So there are ebbs and flows to what your health will look like. Um, but nonetheless, do not stop that from being yourself. Like go out and do what you want to do. Go travel. You can talk to your doctors about, medication and everything like that. As a woman who may want to have children someday, like, do not let your disease hold you back from exploring those possibilities as well. I am in no means trying to have children at 21 for myself right now, but, maybe in 5 to 10 years, that's a discussion I'm willing to have. But some people can feel restricted because of their chronic illness because of that. So at the end of the day, do not let your illness be a factor in your decision-making process. Make your decision saying, I want to go travel, then focus on the chronic illness after that, right? Make those big decisions first and don't let the chronic illness influence any of the big picture stuff yet. If you want to become a big girl boss CEO like myself, like I want to do that, right? I'm not going to think about right now, oh, but how is my chronic illness going to affect, my presence at work and how am I going to excel in my career with this? Don't focus on that right now. That's a problem for a later time. Focus on the big picture stuff. Like go for your goals, go do the things you want to do, and then figure out how the chronic illness stuff loops in after that. Just be yourself. Don't look at what other patients are doing sometimes. Like, it's good for inspiration and stuff, but everybody's journey is so uniquely yours. So, like, for example, I don't experience chronic pain at all, really. So, that's not something that can influence me, but a lot of people who do have vasculitis and other rheumatic disease, like, they experience a ton of chronic pain. So sometimes I'm like, okay, well, like maybe I will. No, like don't focus on that. Ignore that. Ignore what other people are doing. Literally just focus on you. It's your journey, your disease, your diagnosis, like all of the above. It's all about you. You can be self-centered, right? Like putting yourself at the center is never a bad thing sometimes. It just means that you are making the best possible decisions to influence your health and your happiness. So, protect your peace, protect yourself.
Thank you so much, Ella, for sharing your story with such honesty and strength, from navigating life with vasculitis to dealing with the invisible illness through some of the most formative years of your life. You've really given us like this powerful reminder that you have so much resilience and you should be really strong despite these moments. And, your experiences facing those delays in diagnosis, medical uncertainty, the mental and emotional toll of treatment, and still trying to find your way to like thrive socially, academically, and as an advocate really highlight the importance of listening to young patients, validating patient stories, and integrating mental health into every level of care. So everyone, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out Vasculitis Foundation Canada's social media and website, linked down below, as well as Ella's social media channels. And I'll see everyone next time on Take a Pain Check. Thanks, Ella.